Shit. Like, seriously. Oh my God. What? Why would this happen? Hey Siri, turn on Do Not Disturb. Fuck me. Wow. Okay. All over again. Let's try again, shall we? Works better. I think this way, probably. Hi. Wow. I don't know what you guys saw. Hi, YouTube, by the way. Hi, Facebook. YouTube actually has some people watching. You just saw my chaos. So yeah, guess what? YouTube got more tea than Facebook did today because what happened was my realtor called me exactly when I went live. Like literal, I pressed the live button and my phone rang, and my phone, which I am live on Facebook on my phone. Hello, anybody watching? Two people watching on Facebook. So I'm live on my phone, on Facebook, and on YouTube on my computer. My phone could not handle it. My phone was just like, this is too much. I could not possibly sign into a social media account and also take a phone call. Because let me tell you, I have an Apple phone, and the one thing it is truly terrible at is telephone calls. And you're like, but phone, originally you had but one thing to do, take and receive phone calls. And yet at this, my phone fails. I don't know if you have an Apple phone out there and you also experience this. Pretty good at everything else, quite frankly. I now have some experience with a Samsung, and let me say, still like Apple better. But I've been trained on Apple. I'm committed. We're in a long-term relationship. I had an LC2 when I started writing in high school. Therefore, it has to be Apple for me. They've trained me, and I can't get away. But terrible at phone calls. Turns out, whenever I do a phone call, it freaks out. Try to do a phone call and anything else. And by that, I mean like hold the phone to your ear and make breakfast. And it still can't handle it. It's like the phone knows you're trying to do something. And it's like, oh no, we can't. We are a diva. Hey Lashonda, yeah, sorry. Sorry everybody. I did indeed yeah, I got a little bit of a late start. It's hi Margaret. Hi everybody, by the way. I don't know if I'm seeing comments on oh hello. Yes, I am seeing comments in both venues. Oh, this is very exciting. Frankly, it kind of messes with my little OCD brain that I have two things going at once, but I think I can handle it. I've handled conversations like this. So hi. Yes, Robert is there. Yay! People are on YouTube, people are on Facebook. I'm delighted by this. We're experimenting with this bifurcation for a bit because Facebook is being so wiggy that I am trying to figure out if I can find another home. Don't worry, Facebook. I will never abandon you completely. I love you. But yeah, desperate times, desperate measures. So hi, for those who don't know, but I can't imagine you wouldn't. I'm Gail Carriger. I write books, lots of different books, although not recently. I've been a bit out of it. As ever, if you feel like it, I would love a comment where you tell me where you're tuning in for, why you're tuning in for, what you're tuning in from. I don't know. Just tell me what's going on. Say hi. Um, let me know if you feel like it. I didn't have a concrete plan. It's been several months since I've done a live. I don't think I did one in December, January, or February. So it's been a while. Hi, I'm still here. But I figured I'd just show up and we'd have a chat, and you could ask me questions about writing if you felt like it, or anything else. Quite frankly, it's a beautiful Saturday afternoon here in California. I have already had my tea, so I just have some water. Hydrate, everybody. Hydration is good. Before anybody asks, this is the lipstick I'm wearing today. Lilybyred. It's a Korean brand, I think. It's one of those that, is really only good for this. Like it transfers like crazy, doesn't stay very long. But if you want to look good for a little while, it's great. But it does, come off really easily and stuff. That's part of the reason I'm wearing it. I'm just wearing it for you. And then it'll be dinner time and I'll take it off. And then I have a couple of other things, but while you guys think of questions for me, come up with good questions, everybody, or not good questions, just come up with silly questions. Is I brought a snack if you guys wanted a little bit of a mukbang. I know you like my snack reports, so I thought I'd try a snack. This struck me as a particularly odd snack because while I know the streams do cross, it's pretty rare to find a seaweed snack, which is essentially an Asian thing, with Mexican or Latin American seasoning. The chili lime concept comes, so this is like a global snack, I guess. So I was intrigued because I love a seaweed snack, but I usually get the wasabi flavor. You know me, I like spicy things. And then the other thing I wanted to, before I forgot, was to show you this awesome piece of art. This is from a really cool artist named Minh, M-I-N-H. Huyhn, I think is how you pronounce her last name. It's Vietnamese, so I'm not confident in my pronunciation. It's Huynh, so maybe it's Huyhn. Anyway, M-I-N-H, Minh. I met her at the steampunk event I was at, and she does these really cool illustrations. I just totally fell in love with this one in particular because basically it's the love affair between science fiction and fantasy. And I just thought, what a cool thing to put on like a piece of art. Anyway, you can find her on Instagram, as is usual with the young ones. And yeah, I bought a couple more pieces of like just these card pieces of hers as well because I like them so much. I thought I could put them in rotation. She has a bunch of she illustrated a bunch of like romance themes. And so I bought quite a few of those as well. Anyway, very exciting. So yeah, that's how we'll start. I'm gonna crinkle for a second while I try these. We'll see. We'll see. I like a fusion food. I really do. So, it could be all right. I don't know that chili lime is essentially like my favorite combination on earth, but here we go. Actually pretty good. And they have a nice little bit of heat to them. Honestly, I have no idea where I got them, but there they are. Surprisingly tasty, actually. I feel like the lime actually kind of mitigates the seaweediness. I like the seaweediness, but I know not a lot of people do. It's very seaweed at the front, but then it's nice and limey in the middle, and then it has a nice little kick at the end. So this is a Gail approved snack, I gotta say. These are delicious. Perhaps if you're avoiding salt, it might not be the best for you, but otherwise, tasty snack. Approved. All right, I'm gonna see who's got questions for me, and we'll go from there. So let's see if YouTube has any questions first. Oh, a reminder, since I don't think any of the mods are around. Oh, Okay, so there's a few like Carriger pigeons and mods lurking, but I didn't have a chance because I was discombobulated by the telephone call, etc. To test my technology ahead of time. Besides, doesn't seem to be working as well as it used to. The testing part anyway, so it's not a clean test anymore. So yeah, so I just have gone straight live without warning anyone ahead of time. But so as the mods would tell you, and I am reminding you, please put a question mark at the beginning, and that way I know you're not just chatting with me, and that it's actually something I'm supposed to pay attention to. So I'm going to scan through and see. Everybody's just saying hello on YouTube, so no questions there. I see Lavender on Facebook though, so that means we'll definitely get some questions there. So yay, and everybody's being really good about putting question marks ahead of time. Fantastic. Hello, all of my sweeties. It's so nice to see some familiar names. I got and handles. There's Dick. Thank you, Dick, so much for posting to the group. Yay. Okay, wonderful. Norway is in the house. Hello, Norway. Eugene, Oregon. Hello, hello. Upstate New York. Oh, so many charmers. And Lavender, of course, has a question for us. So let's just get tucked in. Easy question. Kimchi Reuben in passing. Oh, okay. So I was having a chatter on one of the socials recently where I was talking about like foods that are separated by vast distances in their origin, but then when they meet, you're like, oh, you two things are perfect for each other. And here's an example. Chai, like traditional style Indian chai, and pumpkin pie. I mean, they're so good together, everybody. I mean, you have to like chai and you have to like pumpkin pie, which I do. And they're just like, I was like, another really good example is German Rieslings and Thai food. Like just this, even if it's just a Habtroken Riesling, like that like sweet white wine or semi-sweet or even a dry one, and the like spicy acidity and bold flavors of Thai cuisine, like it's just matches made in heaven is what I was saying, because they clearly, like, in any other time period of the world they wouldn't have met each other, and these are just like some of my favorite foods, right? Like the snack I've just decided to devour. Not that like Asian cuisines that use nori or seaweed don't have chili and lime as part of their component, or that Mexican cuisine doesn't utilize seaweed. Just like that particular set of profiles sort of never met each other until the modern day. And one of the things I mentioned was to make a Reuben with kimchi. And let me tell you, it is a true joy. And the way I do it is I just replace the kraut with kimchi that I chop like kraut. So you try to get it to the same sort of stringy or, consistency than kraut, rather than kimchi is kind of more chunky, So find a kimchi you super, super love and just try it. And I, at first, tried it simply the traditional way. So for me, that's dark rye. I will take it pastrami or corned beef, but I'm sort of been leaning into pastrami these days. Pastrami, Thousand Island dressing, and kimchi, and Swiss, baby Swiss often if I can find it. It's a bit stronger. And then what I've done since then is kind of monkey with it a little bit and sort of test the profile patterns to see where it goes. So I found this kind of marbled cornbready rye that has a little bit more texture, so it fries up even crisper. And then I experimented with making a Thousand Island, like using some of like the Asian island, like the Japanese take on condiments. So I could talk about this forever, but like island nations always have really interesting and intriguing relationships with condiments because they're shelf stable. And so they're often introduced by conquerors or colonists or, colonialists. They're often introduced via sort of canned goods and stuff. So you get places like Hawaii who do really interesting things with Spam, but you also get places like Japan that do really interesting things with ketchup, tomato ketchup, and mayonnaise, of course. So we all hopefully know Kewpie mayonnaise now. So I started to experiment with like Japanese Kewpie mayo as part of the Thousand Island instead of, American style mayo. And then I started to experiment with different cheeses. The Koreans use a lot of cheese, often American cheese, but like melty cheeses in with their cuisine as well. So I started to do that. Put a little gochujang in the Thousand Island, like stayed with the basic principles of a Thousand Island, but like just messed it up a little bit. The Japanese do really interesting things with Worcestershire sauce as well. It's often like a hack for, say, okonomiyaki sauce is to put a little Worcestershire in there. Who knew? I didn't until I started researching it. But again, I'm thinking, like exposure to condiments because it's like a packaged thing that travels easily. Anywho's be there it is. So all I'm saying is try a Reuben with kimchi. Try your basic Reuben the way you like it, just with kimchi instead, and then see. Like sometimes, depending on what kind of kimchi you can get a hold of, the Swiss doesn't always quite work. You might want to use a provolone or something else instead. But if you already do that with your Reuben, then go to town. It's a blast. And it's just, I don't know, it's just a delicious sandwich. I already love a Reuben, quite frankly, but kimchi just, if you can put something spicy and a little esoteric, it's always gonna elevate it into a Gail arena. It's always gonna be like, that's the thing I want to eat. So yeah, delighted to talk about it. That was an easy question, Lavender, and you whipped me into a verbal frenzy. Holly asks, am I working on something right now? Can I tell you about it? And might I be going back to Portland in the future? All right. Am I working on something right now? I'm not working on new fiction right now. I'm working on nonfiction. That's just because like my emotions and my brains have still not settled, in case you couldn't guess. I know I'm always a little like hyper and frantic and Gaelish, but my brain's been particularly that way for the last couple months for good reason if you read the Chirrup. But, I am starting to get annoyed with myself that I can't really focus on fiction. Fiction definitely always has more of an emotional component to it than nonfiction. Nonfiction's always been something that I can pick up and put down pretty easily. But generally speaking, I'm pretty good at like meeting my deadlines and writing my fiction, but that's been a little bit of a struggle for me recently. However, I do have a character who's starting to nibble at me, and I have had the epiphany scene for the next book I am writing. So I know exactly what I'm going to be writing, and it's a Parasol verse book. And it's the next in the Claw and Courtship series. I know, it's been a very long time. And the main character is a female character who's very old. She's an ancient shifter species, and yeah. And I essentially I wanted to write what the K dramas call a Nuna romance, which is an older woman and a younger man, but the older woman is like, I don't know, I'm decided firmly, but like between 500 and 800 years old, and the younger man is about 100 years old. So, and yes, he is a member of the Abiffian Lyle's pack. So he's a London pack member. So we're back with the pack, but you'll get to meet this fabulous. I like her a lot. She's like very old and sarcastic, and she has a real like jaded attitude, but she's also like kind of soft and a real sweetheart. So I think you'll like her. And she's definitely kind of started to talk in my head, and she really wants to happen. So that book is ready to go. I am going on a writing retreat early next month. And I hope to have started and gotten like a good outline and everything sort of going before that retreat. So that's kind of what I'm targeting right now. But I'm also trying to not put too much pressure on myself. I just don't think it will be of a very high quality if I don't what's the word I'm looking for? If I'm not ready yet from an emotional standpoint. So, loss and grieving is a really strange thing, and I've never gone through this level of it before, so I'm trying to be kind to myself. But I really do want to write this book. I think it's going to be really fun. And I will try to make it very comforting and warm and cozy because I know that's what everybody needs right now, including me. Lashonda asks, can you turn the artwork to the Facebook screen? Of course. I'm so sorry. Right. The computer screen obviously is much bigger than this is the author, MINH, and here is the piece. Once more, this is the this piece of art that she drew to, or they drew, excuse me, to indicate the meeting of science fiction and fantasy, the love affair between sci-fi and fantasy. It's so cute. Thank you for asking, LaShonda. Yeah, I'll try to get better at this dueling screens situation. I do have more than one camera this time. Yes. Your Facebook Live is on another camera. We don't see what you're sharing on the YouTube one. Yes, I'm seeing it, everybody. I'll try to be better. I love your blouse. Thank you very much. This is a new acquisition. It's Modcloth. It's an old Modcloth blouse, but it's black and white and it has cats on it. I'm so excited. A Reuben egg roll. That's another great idea. Yeah, I have seen the stick it in an egg roll concept, which or lumpia or whatever, which I'm delighted by. One of the earliest encounters I ever had with that's an interesting fusion was a Russian pierogi place. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. And they had Mediterranean, a spanakopita stuffing in one of their pierogies, and it was delicious. And also, the very first pierogi I ever ate was at a Renaissance fair, and they always served theirs with Chinese hot mustard. And to this day, I am absolutely convinced that there is no better condiment for a pierogi than Chinese hot mustard. And if you haven't tried that, try it. And then you can come back and tell me how right I am, because it's wildly delicious. But yeah, I mean, this is where we get into my archaeology background, but almost every culture has certain kinds of food, and almost every culture has a savory roll concept of with which something is stuffed inside of it, right? And I love when that's changed and reused in different ways, or mixing it up in different ways. It's like the sort of sandwich concept. Anyway. Chai, pumpkin pie. Good. Everybody's with me. I'm glad you are excited about the new character. Thank you all. Lavender asks another question. Oh, sorry. Somebody asked more than one question in a row, which honestly, don't test me. I can't keep track of that many things at once. One question at a time for my own sake. Asked if I was going back to Oregon anytime soon. No, I'm not going to the Portland or the Oregon, but I am going to be in Seattle for Worldcon this year. And honestly, it's not that long. It's not that far of a drive. I know that. You know that I know that. You can drive a little bit. It's going to be a blast, Worldcon this year. It's going to be really fun. Even if you're not a regular Worldcon person, I'm kind of organizing a mini invasion. I'm trying to get a bunch of steampunk people who don't normally go to Worldcon to go to Worldcon, and I'm trying to get a bunch of romance writers and readers who don't normally go to Worldcon to invade Worldcon. Come on, fight fantasy with romantasy. No, we're all gonna get along. But yeah, so I'm sort of rabble rousing a little bit. I think Worldcon needs to be shaken up slightly, and the Pacific Northwest is just the place to do it, apparently. There you go. That's my attitude. Lavender asks, speaking of the nonfic, have you been following the Kendall drama? This is so funny. Okay, I have. I follow a lot of what goes on in the book world. I just don't often give it the time of day. So for those who don't know, there was big fervor because Kendall announced that you wouldn't be able to back up your Kindle books that you have bought from them. So Amazon books you have bought. This has nothing to do with KU. If you're a member of their subscription service, this never has applied to you. But if you bought a book in digital form on Amazon and then loaded it onto your Kindle, did you know you could also back that up? Well, yes, you can, or you could. How many people ever bothered to back up their Kindle libraries? This is a question I have, because I would guess very, very few, because I know many a writer who doesn't bother to back up their own writing, let alone their library. Anyway, but you could, which basically meant you could actually back up the books to a backup drive or your laptop computer or something like that. And then you actually owned the books because you had the digital assets. Now, they used to be in Kindle's proprietary format, so you could then only read them on a Kindle. So you'd still have to, have the proper device. But then Kindle stopped using that format, and now they use EPUB just like everybody else. And of course, at this juncture, I'm not accusing anybody of anything. Don't tell Amazon. They decided you wouldn't be able to back up your Kindle anymore, because that means you could stop using a Kindle device and you could conceivably switch all of your books to a different device if you wanted to leave the Amazon ecosystem. And Amazon doesn't like that. Once they have you, they want to keep you. So, that's a very long way of me saying then a fervor, because the reader community realized A, that they could back up their Kindle books, and B, that Amazon was about to take a thing that they had been given away from them. And human psychology hates it when something that they have had, especially for free, is now being taken away. So I think most of the fervor was actually that, a symptom of that particular psycho addiction, I guess. I don't know how you put it. But I honestly don't think a lot of people took advantage of it to start with. So I think it was kind of like everybody throwing a fuss about a thing that they never used anyway. But yeah, it turns out if you buy a book within an ecosystem, that ecosystem is going to try to hold on to both you, your eyeballs, your money, and the asset that they have ostensibly sold you. Don't trust big corporations, especially not on the internet. I always think that's kind of standard fare. My lazy expletive, we're on YouTube now, so I probably shouldn't be swearing, has a Kindle. Like, I have a Kindle. I also read on other devices. I read on a lot of digital devices with, like iBooks or whatever. I also use and buy books from Kobo. It's actually my preferred digital vendor. But Amazon made it really, really easy, and I'm super lazy. So, even as somebody who decries the system, I also, use it myself. All of which is to say, you should download your books off of Amazon soon. Now, I think it's going to go away soon. If you want to back up your books, do it now before they remove that feature. And also buy books directly from authors, because then you own it. Then you own the EPUB yourself. So if you buy stuff directly from me, you can download it off of Gumroad and it's yours. You have that book. So that is the real workaround is to avoid Amazon altogether if you can. But I know not everybody can, and that it's a very difficult piece of technology in general. But generally speaking, if you buy an EPUB directly from an author and then you download it to your computer or your device and then you open it, it'll open in whatever that device's e-reader is. So if you have an Apple computer, it will open in iBooks, for example. Then you can just read it that way. Yeah, and then whatever smartphone you have, you can open and read things in that. And then obviously some of the other e-readers, the digital e-readers that aren't Kindles, they will also open and read any EPUB. So that's the drama. The drama of the book world. I gotta try to figure out a better method of like having my two screens closer to each other. So I'm not like completely angled. You know me in technology. I'm so sorry. Plus, I have like this antique desk I work from, and it's like all wobbly and like so. Every time I touch the desk, like the YouTube screen wobbles. And then every time I like cross my legs or change my feet, I hit the Facebook one. Trials and tribulations. I'm also, if you've ever seen me in person, you know that I'm like super active when I talk and I wave my hands around a lot. And that honestly, it really doesn't help for the internet world. It doesn't help for Zooms or anything. So that's Amazon. I mean, always delighted to see a little bit of an exodus from Amazon, but I have a feeling it's not like hugely impactful for them. I think some people are leaving, but most of them are taking it as an excuse to leave because they were gonna do it anyway, and this gives them a very good statement of intent. Yay, Modcloth. Elizabeth asks, where do I get my amazing headwear? Started wearing a headscarf daily, and myself, oh, thank you. I actually do know how to style like tie and drape a head wrap or a turban, but I actually buy these ones off of Amazon. Speaking of the devil, there's a lot now. I actually was just looking into it for a friend. who asked me exactly the same question. And I know the last time I bought them was maybe 6 years ago. And there's more new, cute. There's different patterns. There's different styles. I haven't seen the bow ones in a while, but they have ones with flowers on them, and they're really cute. And they have lots of new colors as well. So I might have bought a few new ones because I want to add a couple more colors into my repertoire. So yeah. And thank you for saying my style is inspiring. I think I'm evolving my style a little bit. I mean, I'm gonna stay retro, but I think I'm leaning into like 1920s and the 1940s a little bit more because those two time periods are a little bit more looser and less tight and structured. And I'm just kind of feeling a little bit more relaxed and a little bit less buttoned up librarian than I used my previous aesthetic. But yeah, you'll still see me in my quintessential head wrap and my vintage wear. It's just the vintage is slightly different. Yes, you should. Reese said, "Don't tempt me to use vacation time to drive to Seattle." I'm like, yes, do it. Drive to Seattle. Come and see me. It's gonna be a blast. This is why I use Kobo. Yes, I do love Kobo. For anybody out there, I just find their interface so elegant, and they're a Canadian company, and they're really easy to deal with. And I gotta say, they're super nice to authors on the other side of the, speaking as somebody who both uses it as a reader and a consumer, and as somebody who has to upload to it and interface with it regularly. And I don't say this about any other vendor. They're a pleasure to use. Like they're really easy to work with. When I have to update an ebook because I'm fixing typos or something, it's incredibly simple with Kobo. They're just seamless to work with, and they're a really nice company. So that could change if they get bigger, but right now I got to say they're the top of my pack, both as a vendor and as a server of books to the world. Boop-a-doop-a-doo. Holly says, "Am I still making new podcasts with Piper?" Okay. This is 20-minute delay. So if anybody unaware of this, I also have an actual podcast, not just me chatting like this, where I talk with my dear friend Piper about travel, because both of us travel a lot and both of us travel alone as females a lot of that time. And so we thought nobody was covering that subject really. And so we get together and we have a lot of fun. We talk about the delicious food that we've eaten, but also about places that we visited, and also like travel hacks and tricks and tips and things like that for solo travelers in particular, but just for people in general. So you can get all the back episodes on whatever platform you like to listen to podcasts on. And we have banked a new season. So we have the Thailand trip and a bunch of other stuff after that. So I think there's maybe 6 episodes recorded and banked and edited and ready to go. But they just haven't been uploaded yet. And that is unfortunately because Piper has been unavailable for that. And if you want to know what's going on with her, I'm not really comfortable talking about it, but you should probably join her newsletter and you'll learn about it there. So we're just kind of waiting until she has the bandwidth for it, really. And we are planning to keep it going and doing some more because, since we stopped, she's actually moved back to Thailand. So we need to talk about that. But yeah, there's stuff to chat about, but unfortunately, we're still on hiatus. We hope to keep going, but we're still on hiatus. And if you want to know the reason, it's public knowledge, but it's not my personal business. So, but you're better off talking to Piper's, getting it from her newsletter, because I don't think she's officially talked about it on social media or anything like that. So, but yes, we are continuing with them. There's not a ton. I mean, I don't know how many episodes we have, but I don't think we're yet at like 100. So there's not a ton. I mean, part of the problem with doing a travel podcast about travel is like you travel all the time. And so coordinating the two of us, especially now that she's on a completely different time zone, is increasingly complicated. Yes, the joys of travel is it makes it difficult to coordinate to talk about travel. Reese asks if I would consider coming to a lesser known city when touring, or do I prefer major cities? I don't book tour anymore at all. So that's kind of moot there. It used to be back in the day, I'd actually survey people, and then So when an author is going on book tour, it has to do with how many people have ordered the book in different places, if it's like a new release or something, and also how enthusiastic the bookstores are to have that author. It kind of has nothing to do with the author's choice. It has to do with sales numbers in the vicinity, and then the bookstore's enthusiasm, willingness, and ability to put on an author event. That's why, or you may get or not get certain authors in your area. It'll also have to do with like the taste of the event coordinator, quite frankly. Like it's usually down to there's just one person at a bookstore, even at a larger bookstore. And sometimes they don't like romance, or sometimes they don't like this genre, or sometimes they're affiliated with the university. So they tend to bring in nonfiction and academics. It's just that plays into it as well. When, if your favorite author who's on book tour is not coming to you, then go to your local bookstore and say, hey, why is this author not coming? And your bookstore might go, I don't know who you're talking about. That might be why they're not coming. That said, I've been brought to very small cities and towns to talk to schools. And then I'll often try to organize an additional event because I also write YA, so schools will bring me in. And I'm always excited if there's even a slight possibility of going somewhere because of an academic thing. So if I'm brought to town to speak at a university, I usually try to find somewhere to be where other people have open access, or I ask the university if the program is open access for others to come, which it often is, quite frankly. Universities are really usually pretty community minded. So those are two other reasons an author might be in your area. But I personally, yeah, okay, so I'll give you an example. I'm going to Washington, D.C., and I reached out to multiple different bookstores in the Washington, D.C. area to see if any of them just wanted to host a little informal gathering like this. And none of them even replied to me. So sometimes that's the case. So basically, I'll be in Washington, D.C. I mean, part of the problem is that the event that I'm there for, it's at a hotel near the airport. I mean, the airport's right in the town, like very close to town. But um, what I'm going to do, therefore, is just open myself up and say, if you're able to and you want to drive a bit and you're local to the DC area, come and hang out with me at the bar during this event. The hotel bar is open to the public. There's parking because it's a hotel. So just come and I will be like drinking a drink and talking to the air in the bar at this event. The event is for authors. So I assume a lot of readers aren't interested in that, but I'd still like to see you guys if you want to in the area, and we'll see if anybody shows up. And I've done that kind of thing before, and sometimes nobody shows up, and sometimes 10 people show up, and we have a nice little coffee clutch gabbing session, right? So that's the kind of thing that I do, but that's because I know most of you and I like everybody and I get along with my fans really well. Not all authors do that. Um, so yeah, I mean, a super fan in Virginia has arranged a special charity tea event that I'm flying in for. So and it's a very small town, so I will go to like super small towns and do things. And then of course in my local area, if it's driving distance, I'll often do stuff. So yeah, so the places I go are not always really up to me. It's whether there's a venue that wants me, an event I'm already in town for, that kind of thing. So, and it probably applies to many other authors as well, I would say. Tiara, sorry if I'm not pronouncing that right. I know I say that every time I say your name. Asks if I ever come to the East Coast, and the answer is yes. Not as often as I would like because it's a long way to go, but I just said Virginia, and I know that doesn't count, but it is the East Coast from my perspective. It's on the eastern seaboard of the United States, so that feels like East Coast to me. Yeah, I get to the East Coast. Used to be once a year. Now it seems to be once every couple of years. I love it there. Generally speaking, it's Boston for no good reason, except that Boston's a super reader town and they tend to do better events for genre than New York does. And I have really good friends in Boston. So I like going to Boston because two of my best friends live there. So hey, um, yeah, but so yes, I get to the East Coast. Hopefully I will see you there next time. Um, Rachel says, In the style of the Oxford comma discussion, is there a written English practice, convention you've changed your stance on over time? Oh, how interesting. Well, for those who know me well, know I have not changed my opinion on the Oxford comma. Pry it out of my cold dead hands. I love it so much. I wouldn't say I'm coming around to the semicolon. Again, for those who don't know or haven't noticed, if you've read my stuff, I don't like semicolon very much either. Occasionally, a copy editor will sneak one into one of my descriptive paragraphs, and I'll be all right with it. But generally speaking, if somebody tries to put in a semicolon, I will rewrite the sentence in order not to use that semicolon. But I'm coming around to semicolon use in nonfiction. I think it has its place there. I just don't seem to like it in fiction. But I don't think so. That's a hard question. That's not a question I've had before. Yeah, I mean, I get into debates regularly on the subject of N and M dashes, but that's very nitty-gritty. Charity says, for anybody out there, as a chronic con goer, that she chooses to go to events like book festivals and conventions because she's stalking the authors who are there, which definitely legitimate. Right? I'm gonna switch to YouTube and see if there are any questions here. I like Kobo. Yes, Robert says that they like Kobo and similar to me, another author, but wished that they had author pages. I agree. It would be really nice if Kobo instituted that one thing. I feel that way about bookshop.org as well, which is even if we authors aren't given control, if they just had a way for readers to follow the authors that they like and be notified when that author has a new release, that would be a great and probably pretty simple piece of code to put in the back end. So I really wish they would do that. But they don't as yet. It's just kind of book front first. I think they can associate series, but that's about as far as they go. Milmulin. I'm sorry, I don't. This is the thing about YouTube is we get handles on YouTube that are complicated that I don't understand. So but I'm not going to apologize for mispronouncing a handle. That seems like you've made that choice. Is curious as to how you were convinced to come to France in April, May. Ooh, okay. Well, maybe that's a French word then. Did I just insult you? Sorry. Yes, you would have to convince me to go to France because I don't speak the language and I'm terrible at it. No, actually, the French event had invited me before COVID and I had said yes, and I was really excited to go. And then it was in 2020, so the event got canceled, and I thought, that's that. And then they contacted me again. So they managed to reboot the event and everything, and they were like, come. And I was like, okay. Yeah, I love traveling and I'm always excited to go to Europe. It's been a long time since I've been there. I think Epinal was the last time. So years and years, at least 6 years, if not 7 or 8. So yeah, super excited to go back. And I'm probably going to bum around Europe for a little bit. It's me, so I'll just stay there. I usually ask the event. So they offered to fly me. That's part of the reason I agreed to go. I asked them to fly me back several days later, which most events are usually happy to do, so that I can be tourist in the area. So I'm real excited about it, actually. So I might poodle into other parts of France, or I might go to Spain. We'll see. I'm excited. You will hear all about the food, that's for sure. Yes, I have been to Powell's several times, and I would go back to Powell's. That's true. So somebody's asking about Powell's in Beaverton in Oregon. It's one of my favorite venues, and I'm still friendly with the guy who's basically in charge of events and stuff there. But they really only bring authors in for new book releases that are like super widely available. I think for me, they'd make the exception and bring me in for even for an indie book, but probably only one of the Parasol verse books. So, and I would have to arrange to like be up there and do all of that myself, which I'm not necessarily opposed to. But yeah, that's kind of what goes on with Powell's. I do love them. Charity tea event? Where can we find out more? Allison is asking about the Virginia event. As soon as, so the thing is I will hint at events here because it's just between us girls. But yeah, I don't actually announce things until I have a plane ticket because I've had quite a few conventions cancel on me or like eventually decide not to fly me out or something. And then I've had to disappoint people by saying, I said I was going to go, but actually I'm not going to go, but it wasn't something I did. So I don't like to I don't like to write checks that I can't cash. So I usually don't say I'm going to an event until I am confident, absolutely confident that it's actually happening. So yeah, but it'll be in the newsletter. Of course, it'll always be in the newsletter as soon as I have details and no more. Because what happens is I'll be like, I'll be in Virginia. And then a bunch of people are like, where, when, what venue? And I'm like, I don't have any of that information yet because the organizers are not that organized at the moment. So yeah, so when I know the details, so will you is the answer. But I think it's happening. That one's been trying to happen for a while. So I'm looking forward to that. Yes, Holly, I believe, in fact, it's a charity tea to raise money. So I'm pretty sure that the charity tea in Virginia will, in fact, be open to the public. And all the information will be on my events page on my website and in the Chirrup when it goes out as soon as I know more. I simply don't know more. You're asking when and where and stuff, and I don't know. I don't have that information yet. So yes, it's open to the public. I would be silly if it weren't, right? I'm excited that so many people are interested in it. Quite frankly, I didn't realize I had that many readers in Virginia. Yay, Virginia! How exciting! Right. Bunch of questions about that. I'm skipping those because I answered it. Am I working on anything right now? Marina asks. I just talked about it, Marina. I have a really exciting plan for a Parasolverse book with a great, ancient, very strong, very sweet, but also very snarky female main character in the Clown Courtship series. So that's the next fiction that I'm working on, but I haven't started it yet. So I'm not committing to anything because that's the way it works with my brain. I have grief brain at the moment, so it's not functioning on all cylinders. So what I have been working on instead is nonfiction. So I will have a nonfiction book, which most of you don't really care about, but I am working on something. I am writing. It's just nonfiction. Nonfiction is just because it's just like spitting out facts and writing things in bullet form. And that is where my brain normally goes. My brain is a very analytical brain. So nonfiction is not as hard for me when the rest of the world is bombarding me. It's actually kind of meditative. I always sort of retreat into spreadsheets and things like that. So I don't know. I feel like organizing information gives me control over the universe. I know it's a delusion, but there it is. It's one of my mainstay character strengths, flaws, quirks, mainstay character quirks. Any questions from the YouTube? When will we see the nonfiction book? Hopefully, definitely this year. So the nonfiction book is called Going Hybrid, and basically it's about putting the foundations of an author career into place so that you can successfully pivot between traditional publishing and independent or self-publishing. It's a bunch of information that I really want authors to know that people keep asking me about because I do this and because my brain works this way. And finally, I was like, I'm just going to put it all in one place. And then I started writing it and it got way too long. So now it's going to be 2 books, but the first one is going to be called is about the foundations of an author career. Basically, it is intended for traditionally published authors who are switching to a self-publishing business model or are going to self-publish as well as be traditionally published. That is the target market. But anybody can read it as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, it's nothing like the heroine's journey. It's very much the business side of being an author. So that's what that one is. And it's coming up, but I'm trying not to put pressure on myself, but it'll happen. That one I'm sure was I'm almost done with it. I'm basically at the proof stage. It's got to go through a bunch of beta reads and beta edits, and then it'll eventually come out. I'm excited that I'm coming to France. And yes, yay! Milmy. Milmy, what a cute name. That's adorable. Yay, I'm so glad that there have been a few people who are very excited that I'm going to France, and I'm really happy about that because it's been a long time since I've been in French translation. So I was like, I am honored and delighted that you're inviting me, but is anybody gonna come because of me? Like, I don't know. Um, oh, you guys are all so cute. Looking for other questions. Oh, Megan asked a really interesting question. My life as a reader, how fun. Megan asks, do I have any books that I love to reread frequency? Yeah, I am a massive rereader. I actually comfort reread all the time. And there's a couple of books which I have talked about, like in my blog and stuff, that I reread like every year. I have to do a reread. It's never the same time of year. It's not like I have the Christmas reread or something like that. It's always just I'm in the mood for this thing. And I was like, oh, I feel the sense. And then there are others that I reread like once every 3 or 4, 5 years, Like I've been feeling the Kushiel's Dart reread sucking me in. So I reread Kushiel's Dart quite a bit. I reread The Mistress of the Empire, Servant of the Empire, Daughter of the Empire series a lot. That's one of those ones I reread almost every year. Weirdly, I reread Jean Johnson's There's Not a Reason Why, which is a tragedy, just series, but it's a tragic series. But sometimes I'm like, I need a good cry. I'm gonna reread There's Not a Reason Why. I don't know why, but my brain is like, that's what you want. You want that. So yeah, I have quite a few. So those the three I'll reread Alana or any of Tamora Pierce occasionally. I'm like, that's a real comfort thing. I'll reread Dealing with Dragons, like some of those YAs or Howl's Moving Castle, Diana Wynne Jones. I'll just reread some of those because they're like shorter, nuggetier, like I just want that taste in my mouth. I don't know, it's like a good dessert book. And it's very familiar and comforting. I think part of the reason I'm a rereader is I'm a skim reader when I read things initially, so I miss a lot. Like I read really quickly, but my retention is crap. So for me, rereading is partly like rediscovering bits that I missed the first 12 times I read that book, because I never read every single word, so always catch something new. I think that's part of the reason I'm a rereader, but also I just like the comfort and the predictability of it. So yeah, I reread a lot. What a fun question. How about you guys? Are any of you rereaders? Is there anything you chronically reread? That's a good I mean, I'd love to know what your like returns to. I'm a rewatcher too, so this applies to other forms of media and a re-listener. So if I find a song I really like, I'll listen to that fucker until everyone else is sick of it around me. It's a good thing I live alone because I'll just be listening to the same song. I'll earworm myself. And then I'll just be like, okay, I'm done now. And then I'm always happy when it comes back on like a playlist or something. But yeah, and then I'll do it with pieces of media, with shows. I'll rewatch shows. I have comfort rewatch like K-dramas now. Dali and the Cocky Prince is one of those. Like I can rewatch that show like so many times. Hospital Playlist is one of my greatest comfort rewatches, and that's often on like in the background. Marina asked about the nonfiction I was working on. I talked about that. Charity was saying that they gave a copy of The Heroine's Journey out. Yay! I'm so glad that that's making the rounds. Reese is kindly reminding everybody to please put a question mark at the beginning of your question so that when I scan through what to me is a wall of text, I can see which ones are questions. Oh, Holly says that I'm a celebrity in the household because the kids love the Finishing School series. Delighted. So pleased. When I told them you were on the swim team just like they were quite excited. What a cool nugget of information. Yes, for those who didn't know, swimming was my sport. I was on the water polo and the swim team. I also was a lifeguard. So yeah, I'm still a pretty strong swimmer. I don't get to swim as much as I like, although I have been thinking about joining a pool so I could just get swimming again. I miss it. But yeah, because I grew up, I'm a pretty strong swimmer because I grew up coastal swimming. Like I literally grew up swimming in the ocean, in the Pacific Ocean, the cold ocean. And I also surfed. I feel like everybody always asks you that. Yes. Longboard only. I'm not a great surfer, but back in the day when I was working as a lifeguard, we did board rescuing. So yeah, you'd run around with the torpedo and all that, the usual thing that you saw on Baywatch, but we also had to pull people out onto the longboard. If you had if you were pulling a surfer out, for example, real far out, you go with a longboard and then flop them up onto the longboard to get somebody out. Just worked easier than like any of the life preserver things. At least in my opinion, it worked easier. I guess they don't really do that anymore. Lavender wanted to know if I've looked into moving my storefront. I have made the executive decision that I will be moving my storefront, but I had to look at my schedule. The neckline on this blouse keeps moving around. It's my fault, but it's going to be Shopify. It's just the most versatile. It has the most options that I want. So it covers almost everything that Gumroad covers. So the reason I was with Gumroad initially is because it's a beast. It's a terrible platform to work with, but it has everything you could possibly want. By which I mean the ability to sell like one-off. So if I find a book in my collection, I just want to sell one of them, or I just have 6 copies of the Russian editions or something, right? Like it has the ability to do that. So physical books. It's also merchant of record, which has to do with taxes, which makes things complicated. That makes it a lot easier. And then they also do digital. They also allow for audio. And a lot of the other platforms aren't versatile enough for me. Like I need it to be able to do a lot of different things. And I don't want to have multiple different storefronts, one of which does digital, one of which does physical books, one of which drop ships. I don't want that. That's too many things for me to log into and keep track of. I want it all in one place, which pretty much just means Shopify is my only major alternative. And the problem with Shopify is it's incredibly difficult to learn to use. It's really unintuitive. Once you've learned to use it, it's fine, apparently. But I will need to take a course in order to do it myself or hire somebody. And hiring somebody means I need to research who to trust to hire to do it. So right now, that's the barrier to entry. I don't have the time to figure it out. Gumroad is back to working fine or fine enough. So I'm thinking mid-year. I'm hoping mid-year. I got to carve out, 2 or 3 weeks to figure out who, what, where, why, and how, and then start making the transfer. Now, I'll leave Gumroad open, up, and active. So you don't have to worry about that. It'll keep your library. But like I said, part of the reasons I use Gumroad is so that you can download the digital assets from your Gumroad library directly to your own computer. So unlike Amazon, you can have your own backups. You own it. You bought it. But access will remain open because Gumroad doesn't charge me a monthly fee or anything like that. So I can just keep it up. So the stuff will stay up in Gumroad. It's just you'll start to be directed if you buy directly from me to buy directly from the Shopify store instead once I get it up and running. So that's kind of another reason. It should be a pretty seamless transition between the two. I just have to get the Shopify up and running. So I made the decision, which for me is, at least I know what I need to do now. It's just a matter of finding time to do it, as is everything in life. Reese asks, are there books you can't finish? So many books I can't finish. I mean, this is kind of a negative way to end the live. It's 4. We got a little bit of a late start, so I'll go a little long. But yes, I DNF books all the time. And I would like to encourage everybody out there to do the same. If you don't like the book, you don't have to finish it. You have my permission. You have an author's permission to not finish a book you're not enjoying. It's okay to put it down. The commodity we have the least of is time on this spinning rock of ours. So please don't waste your time on a book you're not enjoying. It's okay to stop reading it and read something you love or reread something that you have loved before. If you need it from me, I give you permission to do that. I am an absolutely ruthless DNFer. I don't finish books constantly. I would never talk to you or anybody else about the specifics of a book I don't like or have stopped reading, because I don't think that's my role as a fellow author. I never want to badmouth any other authors. So I don't give negative reviews. I don't, unless it's like a nonfiction book where I was like, you didn't do your job, which was to solve the problem that you stated. So like sometimes I'll give a nonfiction a negative review, but if it's fiction, I'm very moody as a reader, like I really mood read. I don't feel like it right now. And I'm also super, super picky as a reader. And so some books that people love, I'm just like, yeah, that's not for me. Often super popular books. And so I'm not going to say anything negative about it, but I'll be like, oh, I tried that and I do not like it. So yeah, there are to answer your question, Reese, there are more books I don't finish than books I finish by a landslide, actually. And I keep track of those such as I can in my e-reader. Um, yeah, because I will drop a book. It does a trope I don't like, I won't read it. Like I'll stop in the middle. And I have a lot of tropes I don't like, a lot of tropes I love. It has a writing style. Authors have very strong voices. Sometimes I do not resonate with those voices. I don't like to read first person. I mean, that puts a ton of books out of the loop, like immediately. I will sometimes, but most of the times I don't. Most of the time I don't enjoy it. So yeah, there's many, many reasons I stop reading a book. In fact, there's often a little bit of my brain that's like, you got to give me a reason to keep reading. Like I'm looking for a reason to be turned off until if the author is good enough, I forget that I'm an author myself, or I forget that I'm even reading and I'm just so immersed. And then I'm like, ooh, you're a magic author. I love you. um, Marina asks us if there's any way for Canadian readers to access hard copies of my books. Yeah, they're for sale. All of my books are for sale in what's your major one? It's at the bottom of a lot of my blog posts. Ooh, which is it? Indigo. Is it Indigo and Chapters? Is that right? Used to be Indigo, is now Chapters, was Chapters, is now Indigo. I can't remember. But anyway, yes, there's a retailer that sells print editions it is a Canadian high street retailer, and they have my books, all of them, I'm pretty sure. And then you can also get them on Canada's Amazon. So yeah, you can get my books. Reese is saying what they reread, which include The Golden Compass, Amber Spyglass. Yeah, Philip Pullman. Talk about a classy writer. His writing style is very elegant, Pullman. And there's another Tamora Pierce reread writer. Excellent. Yeah, there's some fun rereads people are talking about. I love that. All right, I'm just scrolling through seeing if there are any last questions. So don't ask any more, please. I'll try and get to the last few in these last few minutes. Margaret asks, are there any books you have had to read that you wish you could have avoided? Yes, for school. Absolutely. And I will go into the Wayback Machine to high school, and I will badmouth a book because the author is dead and it does not matter. And that book is The Grapes of Wrath, which I will be mad at for the rest of my life because I hated it so much. I hated that book. I've never tried to reread it as an adult, so perhaps it is better when one is not 13. But when one is 13, The Grapes of Wrath is probably, and one likes genre, The Grapes of Wrath is possibly the worst book in the universe. I loathe it. There were a lot of books assigned to us in high school, and I'm old, so I would like to hope that a lot of the choices are better and less old white duty than they were when I went to school. But there were a lot of them that simply did not resonate with me, who was a genre reader, science fiction and fantasy pretty strictly, a voracious reader, a kid who loved to read, but who those books said absolutely nothing to. They didn't have characters that resonated with me. They didn't have plot lines or interesting things that resonated with me. I wanted Mercedes lackey and girls talking to unicorn horses or whatever, right? Like The Grapes of Wrath isn't going to work. I mean, I mildly enjoyed A Tale of Two Cities because of Dickens, but I really resent those books. I also took a European Bildungsroman class, and if you ever get me drunk and onto the subject of European Bildungsroman, I can wax poetical about Thomas Mann and Stendhal and Eugene Onegin and like all of the frickin' yeah. I hated those books as well. In fact, I got an A in that course. And my professor at the time was like, I am troubled by your anger with these books because my vitriol would come out in these book reviews we had to write. So, yeah, there are bits of books I've had to read that I've really not liked, but they're mostly written by very, very long dead authors. So, yeah. Any last questions? I have one question, a very sweet question from YouTube. So I think we'll close out on this one, which is somebody was asking about this, which is the Subterranean edition. Subterranean is a small press here in the US that produces these beautiful, you may not be able to tell, but this is cloth. So they do these cloth bound hardcovers. This is case wrapped hardcover with a foil inlay on them. And this was the first one that they did. So it was an arrangement with my traditional publisher that they did this hardcover edition. It was the first hardcover in the US of this series. It was my first US hardcover ever of any kind. And yeah, I think they did a beautiful job. And I have continued to work with them one-on-one, both via my traditional publisher and myself as an independent author. And so they've done these ones for me as well, which these are omnibus collections. So this one is Fan Service, which has the two Supernatural Society books. So it has Romancing the Werewolf, Romancing the Inventor, and Meet Cute. And it's called Fan Service because those were the three most requested stories that you, the fans, asked of me. So I worked with them to do that one. And then more recently, they did the Delightfully Deadly Omnibus, which they said is one of the thickest books they've ever done. And this has the three Delightfully Deadly novellas in it. So it has Poison or Protect, Defy or Defend, and Mature Door. And so they do these beautiful editions. And then they also do lettered editions. So there'll be a limited number of these. So once the print run is done, you cannot buy it again, right? It's never re-released. So you have to buy it when it comes out or on the secondary market. So these will show up on eBay sometimes in places like that. But they also will do lettered editions, which almost never show up on eBay, except by me occasionally. And those are leather with gilt inlay, and they're usually a slightly different color. Sorry, I needed to show. I forgot to show Facebook. So yeah, this is the soulless one we were talking about. Yeah, and I have it here on the screen because it shows up so well on Zoom. That foil on the mat of the fabric, it's just really good on camera. So that's why I keep that book out, for no other reason. The glossier covers, just, that you get reflections and stuff off of them, and so they don't look as good on camera. So, but the foil ones work great. So that's why I have the Soulless one up there. So that's Soulless. Yeah, and keep an eye to the Chirrup because there may or may not be more to come in the arena of special editions. Just saying. And that, I think, is that. So thank you all for joining me. It's been lovely. Sorry about the technical difficulties, but hey, it's something. So you get to see how the sausage is made or the tea is brewed, so to speak. I love that we had a little vitriol about the grapes of wrath. I do try to stay positive, but occasionally it's nice to be asked a negative question, I guess. Have a lovely rest of your weekend, everybody. And thank you so much for tuning in and for asking me such fun questions. And I hope to do this again sooner rather than later. I don't know if I have one next month because I think I'm traveling. I think I'm on retreat that weekend. So probably no live in April, but definitely the month after. So come up with good questions for me then, and take care of yourselves. And if you can, take care of somebody else too. Look, yeah, eat nibbly bits, eat yummy nibbly bits and tell me about them. Brew good tea and tell me about it. And I'll see you in a couple months.